What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff, arm yourselves, life stuff. Back from an unexpected vacation and a little out of it still. Free members of the Patreon get access to the stuff we were posting during all this. Not too long ago, someone asked about my thinking process. And that's an odd question to me, or a difficult one to answer in any structured way, because it's an automatic process. It's like breathing. However, I've been thinking about something, and I think we can kill two birds with one stone here. Because what I've been thinking about demonstrates a bit of the way my thinking works. Astrology is weird because I don't understand it. We've talked about this before, but for the uninitiated, you have bullshit or basic bitch Wiccan type astrologers, which are most of them, but then you get the ones with the wheels and the implements and the telescopes, and between their intuition and their craft, they are equipped to give you good information, useful information. And I've been thinking about astrology again. Because, to my eyes, even with the really good, effective astrologers, there is some disconnect in that system I don't understand. So, in my thought process, the first thing is noticing there is a pattern. Certain astrologers can give you good information consistently. Disregarding everything else, that is a hard datum. Even if right now we can confirm objectively 100% cosmically for sure astrology is bullshit, it doesn't change the fact certain astrologers give you good information consistently. Meaning, even if it's not, or the reason behind that ability is not what they say it is, there is a reason for it. Because it exists. And that's usually where these thought process investigations begin. Flipping through the files for a piece of information or a fact or a pattern that seems interesting and you'd like to think about. This is the case. Why is it the case? The next step in the thought process is investigating. What is there available, readily available, to learn? And another thought process thing is I'll almost never select just one thing and investigate it all the way through to the quotes end whenever you can find an end. Usually it's a bunch of investigations running simultaneously. Some you have on your desk, those are the ones you are immediately concerned with. Some you have tacked to the corkboard above your desk. These are the things you're interested in but are not actively or hard pursuing. Then you have your filing cabinets, patterns or facts you are aware of and could at any time start investigating, or you could put one of your active cases into your filing cabinet to be investigated later. But these are things you are aware of. And then you have tons and tons and tons of leads. Potential patterns. Things you are aware of, but not in the you know for certain something is here way. There could be something here, but you haven't gone out and investigated it enough to get it to a state you can put it in your filing cabinet. And again, there are rarely any hard beginnings or ends to any of the things you're investigating. Astrology is something that has shifted between the filing cabinet and the corkboard in the desk and back and forth and so on for years now. And what's happened in the last couple days feels more like you pick up the file to put it somewhere else and then you sit there holding it for a little while. Which again, these metaphors or examples don't work 100% because this is not the way that this thought process actually works. This is the best I can do to explain it. Now, now after the reading what's available or apparent common opinion phase, and again, these phases are not hard phases either, comes the what do you think about it phase. Based on what you've read, what you've investigated in this sphere, what you've learned from other spheres, and then a lot of intuition. The intuitive sticking point or barrier for me is I don't think planets are that powerful. At least the way astrologers of all tiers claim them to be. Now, on the most basic pro astrology side, you can consider the fact the moon affects you tidally, affects you gravitationally, the sun shines light on you. Yes, astral bodies can in fact affect you. And then you take it to the next level, the more mystical level. I believe planets do have power. I don't know what they actually represent or what powers they actually have, but I'm of the opinion planets do serve some mystical purpose, even if it's not exactly what astrologers say they do. And this is a point in which your investigations can get knotted up. Because you'll sit down and you'll read an astrology book. You'll talk to a higher level astrologer. And they'll do what they do. They will provide you a piece of good information, and they will explain how and why that information works. And their explanation lines up with everything. However, something's wrong. You don't know what it is because all the math checks out, but something about this is wrong. Or there's some larger picture you feel is missing. So, how is something wrong if all the math is right? For example, they say Venus represents or has the power of X, and in your experience, that tracks. I believe the astrological system has power. And there's even overlap with tarot, which is a field I'm more familiar with. So if this system is effective to the point you're willing to use it, then how can you feel or think something is wrong? I guess this would be in the thought process an isolating phase, a triangulation phase. Your intuition is yelling at you, and now you're playing Minesweeper, trying to identify this missing but important thing. And in typology language, none of this is background processing or computing like an eye. This is all active. You have to do this. NE has alerted you to the fact there is a micro puncture in this weave, and now it's your job to troubleshoot what's missing or what's been missed. And this process is difficult, especially in situations in which you're reviewing or auditing something you believe in. Because the problem, if you want to call it a problem, probably won't look like a problem. In fact, it might not look like anything. Sometimes we talk about investigating using parallax. Instead of finding the thing, you find where the thing should be because maybe it's hiding, using different locations, again, to triangulate where it is or what it is. If you look at it from just one angle, you won't see it. You need to look at it from multiple angles at the same time to figure out what doesn't line up. And again, even once you've identified what you're looking for, you might feel this is not something you should be looking for. Because these little aberrations hide in the fact, one, everything looks right, and two, even if you identify it as an aberration, you don't know, or there's so much you don't know, that you don't even know what you're looking at. Your job in this phase is less to figure out exactly what's going on, and more to establish that, one, there is something to be looked at. This is not a nothing, this is a something. And then to start figuring out what's going on. It's tricky and it's hard to do, especially because you're relying so much on your intuition. And you don't understand how your intuition works. It's a faith test as much as it is an operation. So, with astrology, the issue I've been working through is how can planets have all this power to the point you trust they have this power, you use your knowledge that they have this power without there being the answer. I'm having a hard time wording this, so let's skip a few steps and maybe we'll come back to them. You are using you're rotating this entire system in your hands to try to figure out what system this system exists within. You believe planets have power. You've seen planets have power. The astrologically minded say astrology is the answer because it can do things and you can see that it does things. And you can see that it does things. But what makes astrology work? Why do planets have power? What if the planets are behind us, then what is behind the planets? And that's where I made my small realization about my disconnect with astrology. I don't get it the way high level astrologers get it, despite seeing that it works, because I'm more concerned with whatever is giving these planets, these celestial bodies, their ability to influence us the way they do. The disconnect is, I think celestial bodies are indicators, not sources of power in and of themselves. Example, you are standing in a very windy place and the wind is affecting your ability to exist. Wind is fucking up everything. But right now, the level you're on, you don't even know what wind is. All you know is that something you can't see is affecting you. So you want to understand what's going on. On top of a mountain, you can see it, you can't go there. There is a giant windsock blowing in the wind. You notice the direction the windsock is facing correlates with the direction from which you are being affected. Good. You've noticed something that helps you measure this force you don't understand. But then you say or think the windsock is the thing that's affecting you. So you start paying close attention to the windsock and benefiting because the windsock does indicate what will be happening to you, but you go on without ever learning what wind is. Learning that the windsock is as much a subject to these forces as you are. You think the shit floating in the water is what water is. And connecting this idea with a different idea, or an example John Michael Gaudier used to describe energy, I think. A rock is rolling down a mountain, building up energy, but then it gets caught in a crevice. The rock has stopped, but it isn't at the bottom. That's my disconnect with astrology. It's moving in the right direction, but it hasn't gotten all the way to the bottom of what's happening. And none of this is to naysay or condescend at astrology or astrologers. In fact, I'm willing to bet some astrologers are already aware of this phenomenon. or are already aware of this information and to them it was obvious. My basic misunderstanding of the system. I want to understand the unifying pattern because I think there is a force or a pattern underlying most systems like these. And we can go into typology as an example. I think typology is a super accessible magical system. Typology is magic. And you mistake it well, you can't even say you mistake it for science because people don't regard it as a science, even though you can prove this shit works. The reason I say typology is an accessible magical system is because once you're aware of the way it works, it's impossible to deny typology. It gives you I mean, people can and do try to refute typology with words, but once you've seen typology at work, even when you're just beginning typology, it's not something you can just forget. It's not something you can just write off. And in addition to that, because typology postures as sort of a scientific psychological thing, it it appeals, or it's more appealing to your mind, to your frame of reference, than the planets would be. Divining the stars. A highly conflicted typology topic. Can you type animals? And step further, deeper into condescension land, can you type objects? What would seem to be the obvious answer is no, because typology, even if you are someone who believes it works, probably thinks it is unique to the human mind. It's a biological phenomenon. However, it isn't. You can type animals. You can type objects. And the reason you can is typology operates not on psychology, but on existential polarities. Where there's a lot of SE, there is not a lot of NI. Where there's a lot of TI, there's not a lot of FE. TI and FI push each other apart. SE and NE do the same thing. Yet, within all these differences, there is some connective tissue that ties all these polarities together, that makes them poles. Different sides of the same thing. Not just in the human mind. There is typology and polarity in the wind. Why is that? Why is it possible and correct and probably beneficial to you to type your keyboard? It's probably the same reason you can extract lots of valuable information using astrology, observing or positioning celestial bodies. There is some unseen connective tissue that makes all these things work. And that underlying force is what you are trying to understand. Or let's say there are separate underlying forces. Then you're trying to use these to get at them so you can get at whatever their underlying thing is. Because there is a singular something underneath everything. Maybe. Even if that something is not a singularity, but is instead a a web of interactions. It doesn't. Fuck. The way things, or the fact that things interact, can be its own something without being singular. And that would be where the next phase of the process comes in, the thought process. Your human mind can go only so far. So, if you want to understand what else is out there, what's above everything or below everything, you need to work your way to these peaks of information. To these points, you are as close to seeing what's actually going on as you can get. You get as many of these, you gather, you mark, you map as many of these peaks as you can so you can do the parallax thing on a much larger scale. If you can't look at the light directly, either because it's too bright or because it's hiding from you, then you look at all the different ways it can cast shadows so you can get a better idea of how it works. Always looking for the patterns, its fingerprints on things. And this is where things get impossible to explain, because I don't know why or how to explain why typology and astrology are related in this cosmic thing, but they are. I can feel it, and understanding the ways these things work and the ways they're connected help me understand or get a little bit clearer of an idea of what's going on, even if it's only on a level I can feel. Looking at all different sorts of shadows helps you get an idea of the way light is cast. Examining all the different ways all sorts of different things react to or float in water helps you get a better idea of the way water works, by the way water affects all these different things. And then to cap off, I'll read from my notes another thing that is related, but I'm not sure how. Well, a few things actually. So, one, imagine seeing oxygen the way you see fog. Freaky, would aliens evolving on noxious gas worlds evolve to see through it, like ammonia or something, the way we see through oxygen? Then two, another brain discomfort, quotes, sight doesn't attune to one universal frequency. We have human sight. Different eyes see different things. Some animals can see in IR. Within the entire realm of sight, things to see and ways to see them, we see only with mankind's eyes. We don't see all that can be seen. It's fucked. Those red night vision goggles. And then three, sense dash possessing a sense doesn't mean you do or can sense everything there is to sense. Your senses are extraordinarily limited doors into a realm of many possibilities. You can become aware of more, but you can only ever know that realm with your sense, your limited access. And I think the way it relates is what we're trying to do here is figure out all that can be figured out, but isn't readily able to be figured out with just our basic senses and assumptions. Our limited existing is not even close to the totality of existence. We're trying to understand all that's out there from our one little arrogant position in the middle of everything. We're trying to see from different angles or understand different angles from our one angle. And that's a difficult thing to do because you can't. The best you can do is get an idea, but that takes a lot of work. And the reason you're doing all this, it's ultimately selfish. It's because once you understand the way things work on a level other people don't, you have power over them. You can improve your little limited angle. And saying that is reductive, but you need to stay humble. You need to do everything you can to stay humble. Because the more you assume your one perspective or your one system is everything, the more you risk being the dude thinking the windsock is the wind. And with that, we will cut it here. Subscribe to the Patreon free to stay in the loop in the event of other surprise vacations. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.